on your feet. Yeah, let's get louder. We got the big guns, gonna feel the power. This dynamite box is about to blow. Tonight the beats are gonna put on a show. Go Beats go! Go Beats go! Go Beats go! Go Beats go!
Hi, Pete's fans. Welcome to another episode of For Pete's Sake, your podcast, everything Peterborough Pete's. We are nearing the end of this season, but we have another episode for you this week. In the meantime, it is currently Tuesday. We are now into March, the first week of March. That means, like I said, the end of the hockey season is right around the corner. And unfortunately, it looks like it won't be too much longer for the Pete's. On today's episode, we are going to recap the latest 3 games, which, if we saw anything, we saw some entertaining fireworks. Maybe not the results the Pete were looking for on the scoreboard, but definitely some memorable moments that we have not seen yet this year. So we will break that all down for you. We will have our 3 stars of the week. Maybe we'll discuss a little bit some of the new prospects that made their debut, and even where do the Pete's go from here. We will also take a look at the playoff picture as it is starting to round into form. So we will have all that for you on today's show. We are going to dive right in, starting with my co-host, twin brother, Encyclopedia of OHL Knowledge. He is going to break down the first 2 of 3 games, starting with last week's home game against the high-flying Windsor Spitfires. What did you see, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know what was in the water this week, but the Pete's just, every game was physical, multiple fights. They weren't getting pushed around, that's for sure. But they played some of the bigger teams in the entire OHL with a lot of size. So it was a combination of high scores against them and getting behind, and then kind of turning to the physicality to kind of push back. The Pete's never gave up in any of the games, especially on the physical side, but the score was so lopsided that this time of year I think it's frustrating. You kind of see the playoffs kind of falling away from you, and you're just trying to wrap up the season in the best way you can, and it's hard when you play a team like Windsor, and you saw their skill in this one. They were up 2-0 within the first 3 minutes. They scored off the opening face-off. Their first line with Greentree and Protus and Abraham is really, really good. They control the puck well. They cycle it well. They have lots of depth up and down the lineup. And they just kind of took it to the Pete's from the start. Kaiser actually tried to kickstart the team by getting in a fight with none other than the first overall pick, Ethan Belchitz, which I thought was admirable of him to even drop the gloves with Kaiser, and he held his own. Actually, I think Kaiser probably won the fight, but Belchitz stood toe to toe and got some shots in. So credit to him for fighting, and the 2 of them gave each other a thumbs up and were talking in the penalty box to each other and respecting each other's admiration for each other. So that was cool to see. That was kind of the only admiration they had for each other all night.
Yeah,
as we'll go into later on. And then they just continued to increase their lead, Windsor. They got it to, I think it was 5 or 4-0, and then Ula kind of broke the shutout streak, scoring their lone goal. And then the third period, it was 6-1 going into that period, and that's when all of the fireworks started happening. People that don't normally fight were getting in fights. You saw Caden Taylor get in a fight, Aiden Young get in a fight. Kaiser got in his second fight, which carries a suspension. So he got a 4-game suspension out of that. Strohack got in the festivities, which I'm sure you're surprised about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, for that, it was just seemed like a brawl or a shoving match after every single play. And there was misconducts thrown out every 2 whistles. Faulkner was thrown out. Malee was thrown out. Fitzgerald actually returned in this game, though, which was nice to see.
I was surprised to see. I thought, with the season essentially done, playoff hopes hanging by a string, that they might just rest them, especially against a big, strong, physical team like Windsor. It seems like just high risk, no reward, but good to see him back on the ice. It's good for his development to get reps.
Yeah, And then Strohack actually did end up getting a 1-game suspension. So you lose 2 defensemen from suspensions. And at one point they were killing a penalty with 4 guys, and they only had 2 guys on their entire bench.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea of how, not out of hand, but how physical and feisty this game got.
Yeah.
And it also saw an altercation in the stands, which is unfortunate. That should never really happen.
No.
There's kids at the game, so show some respect. There's no really need to do any of that, but overall it was just a spirited game between 2 big teams, with one team having a huge lead and the other team seeming to get frustrated and saying, we'll stay with you in the physicality department and just draw you into penalties.
Yeah. Now, do you think, as a fan, it's tough to say, just your opinion on this, like, did you find yourself kind of respecting the guys for sticking up for each other and continuing to fight and push? Or were you like, okay, guys, game's over. This is clearly just frustration. All we're gonna do is get suspensions. Like, let's keep going. I've seen fans like comment and argue either way. A lot of people were like, this is old time hockey. We loved it. We love to see the guys not backing down. And there are other fans I've seen commented that say the Pete's lost their cool. They were losing. Like, don't go down as sore losers, essentially.
I wouldn't say they were sore losers. I think they just stuck up for each other. Like, Young shouldn't have to fight. And he was clearly drawn into something. And Kaiser's like, no, like, there's bigger guys on our team that are meant to play this role. And so he jumped in. Yeah. You don't want your younger guys or your rookies or second-year players to feel like they have to deal with that. So I think part of it was Kaiser was jumping in for Young, and then Strohack jumped in to say, you've fought one of our guys, so I'm going to go after one of your better players.
Absolutely.
It's hockey. That happens all the time. Unfortunately, it might look like that, and I'm not saying the Petes are innocent of anything, but Windsor was playing just as physical and shoving around just as much as the Petes. If they really didn't want to get into altercations, they would have just skated away, and then you could say the Petes were unclassy, but they did nothing to hint at the fact that they didn't want to reciprocate.
Absolutely. Yeah, it takes 2 to tango. So, and I don't think Windsor was completely innocent in either. I 100% agree. Yeah. And like you hinted, Windsor's a big team. Yeah. Like, I noticed...
Belchitz is huge.
I was just going to say, like, the whole team is just filled with, like, big, thick boys. Yeah. Like, they're giants compared to some of the Petes. But yeah, that Belchit, he's 16? Yeah. He's already massive. Yeah. And looks like a force out there. Like, the comparable I think of is like Nick Ritchie when he came into the league, and he was just a man child. And when he decided to play with his size, unfortunately for Nick Ritchie, that wasn't every night. Yeah. But when he decided, like, I'm just going to take over, like, you couldn't stop him. Yeah. And I see that with Belchich, like, it's almost scary to think when he gets another year under his belt, like, he could be, imagine him in 2 years when he's 18. He could be an absolute dominant force. So, I agree with you. I think Pete's, respond appropriately. Unfortunately, had to get maybe a bit more out of hand than it needed to. The fight in the stands, never acceptable. No. Like, you come to the rink. Yeah. It needs to stay on the ice. Yeah. It can't go into the stands. So, unfortunately, you never want to see that, and that's never okay. Yeah. But, it is what it is, and it opened up a bunch of room for some other guys to get into the lineup with all the suspensions we had. So,
Yeah, you move on, and then they played the Bulldogs on the road.
Who we have no history with, right? No. So, of course.
And the roster for this one was just trying to get enough guys. They had to call 3 alternate players up for this one due to suspensions, and Fitzgerald didn't play in this one or the next game, so they must have just told him to sit out, or he may have tweaked it. I didn't see anything. I don't know anything, but he was out. Malee was out. Yeah. Kaiser was out. Strohack was out. A bunch of them were out. Addy's still been out for a while. Yeah. And then they called up 2 defensemen, so Thatcher and Hartnell. Yeah. And then Turcotte was called up on forward to kind of fill a gap for them there. Yeah. He was actually just named the Eastern Player of the Year in the division he's playing in this year.
Yeah.
Which is congrats to him.
Yeah, the top prospect in the in his junior league, which is that's very impressive. Well done.
And 18 multi-point games, 2.26 points per game.
Yeah.
Like, great season for him, and he's going to the playoffs on a 19-game point streak. So he had a great season.
He drew some eyes back in training camp, remember? So maybe he's a guy to keep tabs on.
Yeah, so it was nice to see them get rewarded, to get some playing time. They actually use them fairly regularly, and you might as well. You want to see what you have.
No, there's nothing to hold back at this point.
Yeah, but this was another one where the Petes played actually really well against Brantford this year. It was close. Brantford had a 3-1 lead off on power play, using the power play to kind of build that lead, and then the third period the Petes came back. Page got on the board on the power play, and then Stonehouse got the tying goal with the goalie out, and it was 3-3, and then they went to overtime, and then Nick Lardis got his 66th of the year. Questionable goal there. I don't know if you saw the highlight. The forward on Brantford literally held back two guys, and so they couldn't get to Lardis. And Wilson wasn't happy.
You could see, yeah.
There was clear interference, but at the end of the day, you like the fight back off a 7-1 loss. They go on the road, they play this team tough, and they just couldn't get that last goal. But with the roster they had and their ability to stay with Brantford and keep Lardis off the score sheet until overtime, I thought was impressive.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like their resolve. Like you said, the season's essentially done. They just came off a huge emotional game. They're missing a lot of their guys. It's easy to just look at this and go, Brantford's better than us. We're going out with a handicap or like a short lineup here. Like a bit, undermanned. And, so it would be easy to just mail it in, but to their credit, they didn't. And so that's what I like to see. Another shout out to Nick Lardis. I know this is a Pete's podcast, but former Pete's player, he just continues to fill the net.
Lethal shot.
Yeah, I hope he can do it at the next level. Like, I'm rooting for him as much as he's, plays for a team that has kind of become a rival of the Pete's lately. The kid never asked to be traded. No. He was just part of a deal, and he has just absolutely become a lethal sniper. If I'm Chicago, I'm super pleased with that pick. And I'm intrigued to see what he can do playing at the next level. I hope he can keep it going. Yeah. So, well, anyways, that takes us into our next game, and another Pete. Sam Alfano, remember that name? Back in the day, traded for Connor Lockhart to the Erie Otters. Well, we were taking that on those same Erie Otters down, and it was across the border. It started out tough. Erie, started quick 2 goals, less than 5 minutes into the game. It was 2-0. They actually increased their lead. It was 5-0 before the Petes would even capitalize on the board. So it was kind of a game where the score was more or less out of it early. Not that the Petes had completely given up, but they were just, you could tell, on fumes, fighting it. Erie came out motivated, ready to go. They're still missing their guy Schaefer, but this is a strong team. You look at Alfano, I think he's up to 36 or 38 goals. 38 goals, and then they have Matthew Spence, who's a solid prospect. I don't know I think Schaefer's got the collarbones. He's probably out for a while still, but they have guys up and down the lineup. They're a good team. So Matachek, Faulkner, they managed to get on the board and at least give the Petes a couple goals, but the damage was done. The Erie Otters would close this out 7-2. Probably maybe the biggest talking point of this game, an altercation midway through the game where this one got rough as well. The Petes obviously frustrated. Lots of pushing and shoving after the whistle throughout this game, and then it boiled over at one point. A face-off in the I can't remember if it was offensive or defensive zone. Offensive zone, and the player on the defenseman Messier on Erie just bull rushes before the puck's even dropped. Just bull rushes Parrish and starts to go after him. It led to a big line brawl. Strohak kind of stepped in to grab him and why are you bull rushing the guy? But Messier was just the refs couldn't hold him back.
No.
He tried to go after Parrish. Parrish, got shoved to the ground. And it led to, obviously the coaches being frustrated by this. And Rob Wilson was unhappy with the situation and actually tried to get at the coach of the Erie Otters. Their bench in that rink is right side by side. There's not much room separating them. So they were trying to go at it. And, a couple of players, Messier was involved because he was going off the ice at the time. And Strohack and him were continuing to shove in between the bench. And the refs and security were kind of pulling the coaches away. So a moment that got very heated, frustrated. I don't know what actually brought the fight on.
Yeah.
I can only speculate as a fan. There's something premeditated there. You don't just go after a guy before the whistle like that.
No.
It's not just a spontaneous part of the game. So I don't know whether there were comments said. I don't know whether the guys have a history. But to me, that rings targeting Parrish. You saw a guy and you saw, I'm going to go at him right now. So we haven't heard any discipline coming from that yet. We'll keep an eye on it. I imagine the league will be looking into it because it's a bad look to have, a couple coaches go at it and some players go at it and kind of not be able to be held back. But it's just another, that's 2 out of 3 games this week where there was a bit of an altercation and frustration boiling over. And I like Strohack stepping in to defend Parrish. When the guy kind of bull rushes you when you're not expecting it,
Yeah.
what are you supposed to do? I know the announcers on, I was watching this game, the announcers at Erie were saying, he should have let him go.
Yeah.
But, if a bigger guy is coming at one of your teammates, what are you supposed to do? So props to Strohack. I don't know whether it'll technically be a third guy in, even though I think that's ridiculous. Because I think if anything, this guy charging at you before the face-off drop should be looked at as a suspension.
Yeah.
But good on Strohack saying you're not going to take advantage of Parrish.
Yeah.
Quite the fireworks to the game. Like I said, the score 7-2. It just looked like the Petes, were done. In terms of scoreboard on this. This was a tough way to end the week. This season for more or less is over at this point in terms of playoffs, and it looked like the guys didn't have that jump and fight scoreboard wise to come back, and so it ended up being a lopsided 7-2 loss to those Erie Otters. A tough way to end the week, but lots of fireworks and sandpaper.
Yeah.
So
we got outscored 3-1 this week. That tells you the story.
Yeah.
18 goals against, 6-4.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose when you get outscored 3-1.
Absolutely.
And you're down 2-0 in the game in 2 of the games. Less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Some slow starts.
It's unfortunate. But they played good teams. Windsor's a good team.
Yeah. Erie's not bad. Erie's up and coming.
Yeah. I think it's been a tough season. I don't think it's gone the way the Petes or the fans thought it was going to go so far.
Yep.
And when you get down early, it makes it that much tougher, especially when you've been climbing uphill all season.
For sure, absolutely. And you want to see guys with passion. I don't mean to seem like I'm down on all that fighting and stuff. I think there's a time and a place, maybe dialed back a little bit more than it was, but you don't want to see guys just nonchalantly go, okay, well, we lost. I do like the fact that other teams are winning and taking liberties. We're stepping in and protecting ourselves, and I want them to care.
Yeah.
And if it comes out physically, I want us to be able to respond. So I'm happy with that stuff. But you also don't want it to be over frustration, and it to losing to manifest itself in that way. You want losing to be something that drives you nuts, and it sparks you to get better and improve and lead to more wins.
Yeah.
So, and I think the team knows that, and the coach knows that, and we should need to get it out of our system for this week, and we move on. Yeah. But anyways, we're gonna jump into the 3 stars. Bit of a tough week, but some shout outs. I feel like this has been an ongoing yearly shout out for this guy. Number 1. Matejacek back there. He's our import defenseman. I think he's been one of the stronger defensemen this year. He had 2 goals. He's eclipsed the 10-goal mark this year. He looks good out there. He's not backing down from the physical stuff.
No.
Skates well, moves that puck. I think he's been a real anchor and a leader back there.
Yeah.
Number 2, my boy Quentin Page. Big goal against Brantford to he's a guy that never gives up. He's a dog on a bone, like I said. He's not going to shy away when the games get physical, and he's not going to mail it in no matter what the score is.
No.
So good to see him stick with it. Get a big goal against Brantford that sparked a comeback, and got the game at least into some extra frame there.
No.
Third, we're going to go with our goalie, Easton Rye. Another guy we've been hyping up for a while now. He's come in this year and really looked good. He looks like a very capable OHL goalie. I'm interested in your take a bit later on about future with him. But he made some really, really highlight reel saves against Brantford that kept the game respectable.
Yeah.
I think he's elevated his game this year. Nice local kid, and my thought is, going forward, I think he can be a big part of this team. I think maybe even take the reins. So, good on you, Easton Rye. Good on you, Quentin Page and Matejacek. Let's go forward, and the season winding down. Like we said, let's keep those guys playing well and get some big games going forward.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look kind of towards the rest of the year. We're calling it a playoff push. That's unlikely. What are you seeing like for the rest of the season here, Matt? I know the season's winding down. How many games left? Where you see the guys going? What's your tactic for the rest of the year?
Yeah. So it's not officially eliminated yet, but I think it's as close as you can be. Mm-hmm. Is the sad part. They're 11 points out of 8th place, 10 points out of 9th. So they have 8 games remaining. So that means there's 16 possible points. So you need the other teams basically to lose every single game,
And we need to win
every single game.
Yeah.
Which can happen. I don't believe it will happen. I'm sorry, not optimistic enough to believe that this year.
No, that's just being realistic.
And they're equally divided between home and away games. But the East is so tight that even if you play an upper team, they're not going to rest players because there's like 4 points between 1st and 4th. So if you play a Brantford or an Oshawa or a Kingston, you're not going to get their lower roster because they need that playoff spot.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things. And then we do have some games against Ottawa, which we'll talk about in a second. But Ottawa seems to have our number this year, which wasn't a thing last year or a bunch of years before. We always beat Ottawa, even when we were having a bad year.
Yeah.
And this year we can't seem to get the monkey off our back against that team.
Absolutely.
So I think you play hard for the rest of the 8 games.
Yeah.
You get a top 3 pick probably again. And I think you just see what you have. Mm-hmm. You would be respectful though. Like you want Malee and Bryant and Stonehouse to get their ice time. They've earned it.
Yeah.
They play hard. So you want them to get as much kind of runway as they want.
Yep.
Because they've deserved it.
Yep.
And then you just see what you have. So that might mean you see some new guys in the lineup. Maybe you see Turcotte get a little bit more of a leash on forward to see what you have there. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of just build for next year.
Yeah, I agree. It's up to the coaches.
Yeah.
Coaches, I'm not questioning them at this point. They've earned the right, to run the team. They won the championship 2 years ago. They've been building
before that again with the year.
So
they would have won 2 years under Rob Wilson.
I got faith in the coaching staff, but if it's me, I like exactly what you said. Finish out the year playing hard. Try and win every game. Tanking, in my opinion, is more harmful than going out and trying to win every game. Establishing that culture long term. Yeah. You've got your core set in place for next year, so it's time to get some winning habits and get that show on the road. I'm happy with the core still. Yeah. I know it wasn't the year we wanted to see, but I think an off season for Fitzgerald. If we can get Aiden Young, Carson Cameron, Nico Addy, Caden Taylor, Fitzgerald's 1 year older, Eula, Gowan, like all these guys coming back, and then add in, probably a high pick. Throw in like some other younger guys like Turcotte.
The Czech guy we drafted last year.
Exactly, yeah, import guy coming in, and then and then throw in some leaders. I'd love to see Page back. I don't know what the future holds for those guys in terms of whether some of them will be traded, but I'd love to see some character guys, Page, McCollum, and I think it's a decent mix. Despite what happened this year, I think it's a playoff roster. I think they're talented enough to be there going forward. So I think how you finish out this year definitely impacts next year.
Yeah.
So you continue to go out there, go after and win. That being said, I like what you said. Give the young guys, give the guys you called up some ice time. If anyone's hurt or close to being hurt, that is a part of the Pete's future or could be injured even worse than they are. There's no reason to, at this point, play them and risk further injury. So do what's in best interest of the players health-wise. Continue to go out, fight, play for each other, show some heart. I know the Pete's will. I know that's the way Wilson and the boys play. So that's what I want to see. And I'd like to see the goalies, get rotated in a bit. I know I liked what I saw from Mason Johnson early. I want to see some more Mason Johnson. I want to see some Easton Rye. Maybe give those guys some continued call-ups and see where we go from there. But a final. How many games did you say? 8 games left. Final 8 games. So let's get behind them, fans. Let's root for them down the stretch because it's tough to be in this situation where your season is likely over. It can be hard to get motivated if you don't really have playoffs to play for, but you certainly have that pride, that Peterborough spirit, and we can absolutely be a part of giving that to the guys. So let's show up to the rink. Let's make sure we cheer these boys right to the final whistle. Let them know we're still proud of the boys and that we'll support them through thick and thin. Because I remember from last year and years before where they didn't make the playoffs, going back a bit, like I miss it as soon as the season's over. And so enjoy the hockey, cheer for the boys while you can, and then we'll get ready for the future. And I still think the future's bright. We just gotta wait a little bit longer than we thought.
Yeah. I think it's important also to find out who your captain is next year. Find out who's respected in the dressing room in these last few games.
Yep.
Who you want to have be the captain, who's going to lead this team next year.
Yeah.
You want to feel solid about that going into the offseason, into next year, and not come in and wonder who's going to take the reins.
Yep.
Because you've got 2 pretty good leaders right now that you're going to lose in Bryant and, 3 really good ones in Stonehouse, Bryant, and Lee. So you got to have a good group behind them that's going to come in and play with respect and have the respect of the room, because you're going to have some younger guys
for sure.
So you got to fill that need as well, I think, which they'll do.
Yep.
But other than that, it's a week ahead again. You got 2 games coming up against Ottawa. Home game on Thursday, and then you go back to Ottawa on Saturday. Ottawa's won 3 of its last 4 to close the gap on them between North Bay to 1 point. So they're right on the.
They're playing for their lives.
They actually beat Windsor, which is important, which is huge.
Yep.
And they've won all but one of the matchups this year, so they've had our number, like we said. But it'd be nice to kind of just put a dagger in them.
Absolutely.
And just get some revenge for the last one where they won both games and just
for sure
sweep them and beat them in regulation and kind of see how it feels.
I love it.
That's how I would love to see them do that.
For sure. Come out with some Peterborough pride and let's show the guys, we're going to play hard till the whistle, and I know it's a game you guys need to have. Well, we're not just going to give it to you. Yeah. You're going to have to come take it from us and earn it. So that's what I'm looking for. But get down there, support the boys this Thursday when they take on Ottawa.
Yeah.
Anyways. Well, that'll do it for this week for our episode. We will hope to have another episode for you recapping a couple victories against those 67s in the near future. And as we wrap up the season, we will have a little bit of our summary, who we thought stood out. So look forward to that in the next couple weeks. Hope you guys enjoyed our show. You can find it on the usual places on our Facebook page, on our Spotify account. All those details are on our social media pages, which on Instagram is at for Pete's sake, at PTB for Pete's sake. On our Facebook page, for Pete's sake, you can search that, and on our YouTube page as well. So thank you for tuning in again. We hope to see you guys down at the rink, and as always, go Pete's, go!